All right. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Paul Myers and Ryan Clark from Lantrn AI. Paul was on the podcast before, and we kind of talked a little bit about Lantrn there, so I can link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to go back and listen. But we had an awesome call last week, so I wanted to get back on and have the same conversation again, but record it this time. So, guys,
Yeah.
thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Cool. So Paul, you said, like I said, we had a really cool conversation last week around AI, local media innovation, some mind blowing stuff you guys were bringing up. And you said you had, or one of you guys said you had a list of stuff that you wanted to touch on. So I'll leave it to
Ye-
you. What's like number one on the list that we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, like I was telling Ryan before we hopped on that I think it's important to say that like AI is not going anywhere. And I think that what AI represents for like local news is like a renegotiation on the value of information. And I think a big part of that is recognizing what that value is now in the AI age, and less so how valuable it is in the internet age, because the internet and AI they're just not the same. And a lot of people are thinking like just cut and paste and and then rinse and repeat. And it's like, no. AI is totally different. And uh so my point was that in the AI marketplace of information, having most the most on the ground one of one type of unique information that you get as a publisher already is far more valuable than the seventh story on the Kardashians or the ninth story on the Trump administration. Because I don't know about you, but I'm typically not reading 8 or 9 stories on one topic. But I would read one story that's done really well on a topic that nobody else is covering. And that's really important to me, depending on when I need it and how I want it. And so I think if there's one thing I want to tell publishers, it's that your information, particularly in the AI age, is far more valuable than it is in the internet age. Because the internet is about reach and how many people see your stuff. Because you're still selling ads against that content. Because the more information, the more people see your stuff, the greater reach there is, the more valuable those ads are. But the AI age doesn't really care about advertising. It cares about information. So if you have one of one information that nobody else has, then you have a pretty unique product that nobody else has. That's highly valuable depending on the context that you need this information in. And so the next step to that is centralize your information.
Mm-hmm.
It's, the incentive in the internet age has been publish everywhere all the time, hope that people see it, sell ads against it, and that's how you're going to create this machine that makes money for your newsroom. And what I'm saying is exactly the opposite. Centralize your information and then choose where you publish and why and to who, because now that information is far more valuable just for the information itself, who you give it to is probably way more important than just making sure that everybody sees it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you say,
Does that make
Ryan, last
sense?
time?
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
totally. Well, you reminded me on our last call because you said centralizing your information and like keeping it in there. And that seems kind of like I said, I'm still wrapping my head around this stuff. It seems kind of vague to me. Like Ryan, you said last time, I think this phrase that stuck with me was like right now you're just kind of off gassing data and or your information to all these different places. Is that what you said? Something like that? Like
Yeah, I, I
uh,
I think these organizations, all organizations, individuals, sort of radiate information, and a lot of it they actually sell to the platforms to help organize and make it useful for them. We all have relationships with service providers that are essentially taking information that we're off gassing and presenting it back to us as something that's a little more useful. And I think that for publishers, especially small and medium sized publishers, you're producing all this one of one information.
And then you become sort of a hostage to fate. You just sort of cast this information in the world and hope that some magic algorithm or other third party will return some money back to you for it. And what AI is really representing is saying, hey, well, you don't have to you don't have to do that last step. You can own that last step. And the idea that the story in your local community is going to go viral and change the trajectory of your business in a meaningful way, you can just disabuse yourself of that. Like that's not really how this plays out. But what does play out is stop giving your the 3,000 people in your that visit your downtown regularly, stop giving the ad value away to Google or Meta when you can be the person that places that person into the coffee shop, into the restaurant. Now you can replace that relationship. Before the tools seemed, and they were too complicated for a local small business to build or manage. They weren't going to do it. So you kind of had to play in these large ad market space. Now we actually look at it as we can build these tools and you are producing the one of one data. Why would we throw this data out into some ad market that you're going to get pennies on the dollar at best
Yeah.
when the most successful ad product you might have 2,000 customers for it. But what does that look like for your local realtor market? What does that look like for your local lawn care, roofer? All these services that you can now be the center hub of connecting dots for people. And up to this point, when you look at it that way, you realize it's almost like a big trick that was played on all of us to say like, why would I get to know my like local lawn care service through Google? Shouldn't
Right.
that be something I get word of mouth in town? And early on, I think Google had that, but I think all those systems got played out by bots and sort of more sophisticated third parties. What happened to Google was we lost our trust in it. And so, man, talk about an opportunity for local media to like we've been way ahead of you on that lost trust thing. We can get it back. We get it back first, and now we can demonstrate value for our local communities. And I think, in a way, the information environment heals itself.
Yeah,
Like
dude, Google
it's not
Google
too
sucks
different
though.
from what you're doing, right, Paul? Like you're trying to help a publisher present their information in a way that's going to help them be recognized
Mhm.
and by virtue of it being local publishing in their neighborhood. Like, you're kind of filling a level of that need too. You know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah, I mean that's what we're trying to do for sure. But so I was been thinking after our first call, like all that makes total sense to me. What I don't understand from like a consumer standpoint right now is like people are super used to going to Google or going to ChatGPT now or whatever or
Yeah.
Facebook or whatever the case may be. Like, what does it look like? It's almost like being in like 1995 and trying to understand like what a social media influencer is in 2019 or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what does the publisher look like? Like, I think one of you guys mentioned in the first call, it could just be a black box, and you this like this is the information I want from my source, and you can build out your whatever. Like, does that make sense? That question? I feel like
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been trying to figure that out, how to say that.
Believe me, man, these are the
Yeah.
conversations Ryan and I spend hours per
Right.
week just batting around because, like, it's a little fuzzy in our mind and exactly what the UI looks like.
Right.
Like we've said, essentially, we think your local news site should look like Google from when people liked Google
Right.
because you can
Yeah.
now be Google.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
no reason why you can't. So if you take that, you're essentially saying come to my place, get me and get the information that you need. The caveat though is unlike Google, this is a subscription model. Because imagine how different the world would be if Google had said, no, 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 you have to subscribe to use us.
Yeah.
Imagine how many poor incentives we would have cast away if we weren't building on reach and advertising and everything else like that. We actually just valued the information for the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any Do you have any thoughts on what it could look like? You guys talk about it all the time, Ryan.
I
Same kind of idea. It's like
Yeah, I think we're going through these like like very quick iteration on how we even see AI permeating through our environment. You know, we saw the launch of the chat box. Chat box kind of got people hooked, gave people a first impression of what the product is, but we are already seeing agents creep into basically everything else we touch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a combination of so seamless you don't even realize that AI is participating in that service. You know, there's going to be the smart fridge that's tracking the date of the last time you bought milk or whatever. All that stuff's going to be agentic AI stuff. But there's going to be more deliberate stuff like engaging with Claude, engaging with an app, or you've seen all these like open Claw, these like assistants that you're going to have. I think we're so early that we're gonna look back on all this stuff and laugh. You know, it'll be kind of
Mm-hmm.
quaint, and also it'll be like such a weird little. Gosh, that was like 2 weeks or something. That
Yeah.
was a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think it's
you can,
super early.
well, you can make this look however it is that you want. I think it's just gonna, and I think that'll just come naturally. And there's gonna be a lot of people who make it look one way, and then it'll totally burn out, and then they'll reiterate something like that. However, it looks and people's engagement with it is really secondary. I'm thinking of at this stage where we're at with AI and publishing is that if you can just centralize your information and instead of having some of it in Google Docs and some of it on your email and some of it in Word or some of it on a hard drive that you backed up 5 years ago, because like this is how most people store their information. They don't even know where it is for the most part. If you can put that all in a centralized place and put an AI over it and then ask it questions or pull up what it is that you need, let's say, I need a small budget for what I spent on ink, what I spent on ink over the last 5 years. And it's just like, okay, well, we have all those invoices. So we'll just go
Right.
ahead and like spin that up for you. Like it could be as simple as that. Or, hey, give me a common theme across all of our stories from last year. Like which ones really hit and which ones didn't, and like where was our focus? Or like give me a map of like the types of stories that we did in a year and like how much of it percentage wise was city council versus school coverage or something like that.
I think actually in that vein, if you think about like how Spotify or these other services will send you like your end of the year report, and it'll just be like, hey, this is your genre, this is your
Mm-hmm.
favorite artist. It'll give you like that sort of one pager infograph about you. I think we could do that type of stuff for our customers all the time because we're going to have a high degree of local information that we can exploit that way and say, actually, let me ask this to generate some suggestions based on where we're getting most of our information. So it might actually help you direct future stories. You know, there's a lot of ways this plays out from the sort of like frivolous where generate a crossword every day from stories that we did last month
Mm-hmm.
to like our own Wordle. I mean, I minus the copyright infringement, but like these are the types of things where up to this point, the business of product production was daunting and it felt so much more deliberate and intense. Now you're in a place where you can actually play with your own information. You can run a program, you can run a game, you can run an experiment. And that's the thing I think if I was going to impart this on any publisher is if you can get your data in a way that the AI is it's native to the AI. The idea of where this goes is really it's green field.
I say that's your imagination at that point.
Yeah, the cost to experiment is as close to zero that's ever been. So how can that's the part why it's hard to like what does it look like? I'm excited to find out. It's going to look like
Yeah.
a laboratory to me.
It's the age of the idea guy, which is great news for me. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm nothing but ideas. I like I like the way you said, like how Spotify does the Wrapped or whatever it is, and gives you like your
Yeah.
year in review. Just if that you could have all the information in your life, that'd be so cool.
Right. Well,
And
there's a piece I'll tack on to what Ryan's saying is everybody in the AI age moving forward is gonna have to centralize their data to some degree. It can't be all over Google's platform. It can't be all over some sort of. Now you can
Mhm.
silo that data for sure. Like, it doesn't all have to be intermingled. But imagine where the publisher can play that role of where a publisher plays a much stronger information role in their communities. Because what I really like to think about is every organization in a town has a centralized corpus of data that feeds, that can interact with agents from other people's corpus of data.
Mhm.
So let's take this hub and the wheel analogy like I did the last time I was on the show. Now, you know, we'll say, let's take us for example. So I'm the publisher for Mineral King Publishing, and we're in a bunch of towns. And we have a bunch of information always coming in all the time through all the different beats of all the reporters that we have. And one of them is the crime beat, let's say. Well, the police department down the road also has a collection of data in a
Mm.
database that can, with agents, with AI agents, talk to my corpus of data. So the police department is getting a report saying, like, oh, hey, the crime beat reporter was just walking downtown and talking with business owners about shattered windows or stolen items or whatever, whatever, whatever. And it's happening at such and such rate to such and such person to such and such business owner, so on and so forth. And then the police department now has that information where otherwise they would have had to go out and get it themselves. And you could do that with the fire department. You could do that with city planning. You can do that with individual businesses and other institutions in your town. Like, that's what the future of AI has. If every business, every institution, including the local newspaper or local news source has, because now it's a bunch of agents talking to one another and sharing information that brings topics up that otherwise wouldn't have, because people don't talk that fast or they don't
Mhm.
share information that quickly. And so, like, that's where this could go.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you like I talked to a lot of local media publishers and editors in chief and whatnot, and it's a range of like adoption. I always ask everybody like, "What are your thoughts on AI?" I'm sure I know you listen, Paul. I'm sure you've heard me
Yeah.
ask 100 times, and it's a range of like, "Yeah, I tried ChatGPT once, I didn't like it," to like very forward thinking. Like you guys obviously run an AI company, so you're probably on one end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's fair.
like you were saying, Ryan, like the ability to experiment and like try building things has never been easier or cheaper. Like I'm building, I guess you would call it a SaaS tool now that I've dreamt of for years, did not have the resources to pay somebody $30,000 to do for me, and now I'm just
Uh huh.
doing it. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
like I've seen like what you can do now, and it's becoming more apparent to people. But like for like a local publisher, like say your size of Mineral King or something, who's already like, up to their neck in just busy everyday busyness and
Stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Because it still does take time. Like I'm putting this whole tool together. It's a big
Yeah.
project, way less than it was, but still a big project. Like where would you start when it comes to like, I don't know, owning your data, doing all this, and like,
Yeah.
So I would
like
start with
some bite
Lantrn AI
size.
if I
Yeah,
were,
of
if that were
course.
me.
There you go. There's the alley. There's the alley for your oops there.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
The fundamentals are really not only centralizing your data, kind of looking at your data with a information like business perspective. And I know that may sound weird, but I don't think a lot of people realize that their business is such an information business. And what we've really focused on is how do we give people the tools to centralize that information in a way that it's as native to AI as possible, so they're not wasting time. Like AI speaks in the terms of tokens used, and if your data is in a bunch of old PDFs, and yeah, AI is better than like OCR. It'll go through and it will scrape it, but that takes time, takes compute, it takes costs. If your workflow will produce a data stream that's in this native format, um, you're going to be a little bit faster. You're going to be a little bit easier. I don't know necessarily what the large aggregators of information are gonna um, weight as their favorite way to like scrape information and use it. But if it's anything like every other business cycle, they're going to go for what's the fastest to respond, what's the cheapest to aggregate. So getting there is a great starting point because it not only does it enable you to like open the playground on stuff that you want to do. Because imagine if your information is in that sort of space, and then I'll go back to Wordle. Imagine a game catches fire, gets is viral. Your first move is, oh, I'm going to sit down with my agent and say, let's do that with our data.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting out of the gate so fast that when an idea is viral, you can capitalize on it. When an idea is organic and internal and is something that like you're working on, you have the information. You're no longer like having to wrestle with your own information to achieve the thing that you're trying to build that you have good vision on. So that's like the starting gate. And that's why I think what we've really focused on. A lot of times Paul and I will get into conversations that are about like, what does this look like? How is this going to look? And I mean, I'm an old school tech guy, and I look back at screenshots of companies I worked for in the late 90s, and they look like they were from the 60s to me.
Right.
I can only imagine what they look like. So I know that that's just kind of us iterating in that playground. And it's almost like it doesn't matter. But to the point where if Lantern will be terribly successful, if we can get businesses to the point where you're at, where you're like, you know what? I'm going to look at all of my SaaS bills and I'm going to go one by one and see if I can just turn that subscription off
Mm-hmm.
because my information's in order and I might save hundreds of dollars a month easily by just having to do what I was paying somebody else to do. And if that
Mm-hmm.
stops full there, as you're going through right now, the process makes you realize, oh wow, I only needed 20%
Right.
of what that
Right.
service provided. Um, I'm going to take off. I'm going to build the part I need, and then the next step is once you have that in place, you might go, I'm going to roll that in to these other two things that I'm building. And now I've got a dashboard of dashboards. And that whole process just, I think, massively changes people's attitude towards what they're capable of, one, and two, like how empowering their own information can be. And that's just within the business, not even talking what you can do for your customers. And so I would say, that's how important getting that information structured and centralized and ready to go is.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Otherwise, Google's just going to try to come down and force you into a funnel
I
that
know. It's like I want
may not be good for you.
It's like I want local publishers to listen to this conversation before like signing some licensing deal with OpenAI or something like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because that could be, I mean, they're not working with a lot of real small people yet, but like it's really appealing when you need revenue desperately. They're like, hey, well, but they're just going to use it for their purposes and
Yeah.
everything. A lot like Google
I
did.
mean, like with Mineral King Publishing, we spend a lot of time thinking about what products we want to do and why. We don't have a ton of offerings in terms of product selection. And we have like our newsletter, we have our website, and we have our print products. So like the e-newsletter is great. It's probably one of our best producing, not monetarily, just in terms of popularity. Our websites are really just like, if you want to go see some more, you can go there.
Right.
And then like our print product is relatively popular for the age that we're in. But other than that, we kind of use social media to create a following that is the top of our funnel. And so whenever we host events, people show up and then we sign them on to the e-newsletter, which is free. And then we sell advertising against the e-newsletter. And then a lot of folks convert from being an e-newsletter subscriber to a subscriber. And then they're getting the print and online version. Like that's the funnel. That's how it works for us. What I want Lantrn to do for Mineral King Publishing is offer more utility using that information. And that utility being like, we talked about this last time and you bring it up on the podcast a couple of times since then in other episodes, where if you're starting a business, local news is your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want local news information because it'll tell you who was in that building before, what it was used before. It'll tell you the crime rate around there. Like if you're really good, if you're really plugged in, like it'll tell you a ton of things about the climate, about the audience that you're trying to serve, the clientele you're trying to serve, and you know, I think that if you're a new business owner in a town, it's kind of nice to just be like, "Hey, give me the who, what, when, where, why
Right.
of this business that I'm going towards." And capture that person, like help them start their business. And if you're adjudicated, at least in the state of California, they'll probably run their fictitious business name with you just for the fact that you helped them set up their business
Yeah.
in that area. So, like, you can be a good partner to new businesses as the local news. And we never talk about that in publishing,
Yeah.
almost ever.
Right. And that's where the value is, to
Yeah.
become like a
Yeah.
sustainable
Well,
business and everything. Yeah.
it's the area where Google and OpenAI are not competing with you.
Right.
They can't. They don't
Right.
have boots on the ground. They don't know the people. Like these are the things where it's like you see the teeter-totter like completely invert. And now
Yeah.
it's like, hey, we have all the advantages here. We just need to execute. And it's not easy work. It's the hard work of being local, but you're already being local. Like it's hard.
Hmm.
It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard for other people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big pivot, I think, and it really is. It's a big unlock on the potential. And I think AI, like I think we may have mentioned in the last conversation, that the anxiety around AI on job pressures and all kinds of things, it's a bigger collapsing of these technology moats than it is org charts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I look at what these publishing businesses are going to turn into is, you mean I get to hire more people to go collect more one of one data? You're just adding to my inventory of information. That's fantastic. I do not want to think about having to feed 50,000 people in ad tech that works for Google when that information moat collapses. That's a big monthly bill that they got to solve for. So
Right.
I think the pressure is an opportunity for local, where we're going to get a lot of technology available to us that lets us meaningfully change the way we run our businesses.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. My head's I'm just spinning off in other like business ideas and stuff just as you're speaking already.
Yeah,
What
that'll happen.
I know, right? What else is on your list, Paul? What else you had, which one of you
Well,
guys said there was a list?
I think it was me.
Was it you?
So, the I try to think about it from the publisher point of view because I'm not a Luddite by any stretch of the imagination on like AI or tech. But if I didn't have Ryan to help guide me through all of this and help me out and spend Saturdays and Sundays with me on, this thing or that thing, I would be pretty intimidated. Things would go pretty slow for me. And so, like, I think about all of this from the publisher's perspective because that's my day job. And if there's one thing publishers need in the age of like AI is they need a guide to help them figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I can tell you as a publisher, I've made all the mistakes. I've made all the mistakes that could have been made. I was just lucky enough to live through them and come out on the other side. Not every publisher can say that. A lot of publishers, ended up going away because of the mistakes that they made, which sucks. I guess I was just very fortunate. But whenever it comes down to like we talk about centralizing data and like using an AI to query it and all this infrastructure and all these things, it sounds really expensive. It sounds really difficult to track. It sounds very future. Like I'm talking about underground agents talking with fire departments and businesses and police departments. Like that's my idealistic brain. But if we're talking like, what do we do tomorrow? Well, you need somebody for that. Like you really do need a Ryan type,
Mm-hmm.
and you really need a Paul type to help say like, okay, it feels like you're moving in cement. I understand. I've been there. Here's the first step to moving towards your level of sustainability. And it goes just like this. Like that's what I think that this industry really needs for its long-term sustainability.
Yeah, it's almost hard speaking on it at this point because, like you said, Ryan, I feel like the moment we're in right now, my cool my super cool SaaS tool I'm building right now for my existing clients. I feel like that's going to age like my Angel Fire website when I was like in middle school with like repurposed jokes that I found somewhere else. That's what it's going to look like in probably a way less amount of time, probably in like 2 years or something
Right.
like that. So it's really hard, and yeah, finding a partner to like take that next step with or whatever.
Dude, that is such a good way to put it. Like, I think the thing about centralizing your data is that that is a crucible that if somebody is going to be engaging in AI for, I mean, like, maybe it's a bubble. I highly doubt it, provided how much we've spent historically on other types of projects in this country, such as
Mm-hmm.
like railroads and interstates and those things. When you look at it as a portion of GDP, like AI is kind of in line. If there's one thing you're going to do, it's going to have to be to get the most out of your information, you have to centralize it, at least the majority of it, for what you can use it for. Nobody is going to do anything long-term AI without doing that if you're an information company.
Yeah.
There's no way around that one. So like what we're talking about isn't going to age. This is step number one to the
Yeah.
rest of sustainability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cliche, right? The like attack the problem like you're a startup, for the established. Like there's that sort of thing. But what you're doing is a perfect example. You're building a tool that will satisfy clients and make your life easier and empower them to do more. That's a startup mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to leave your current business. You don't have to, but there are tons of ideas that sort of sit on the back burner at all these businesses of, man, it would be so cool to do this, right? I could probably free up half a day for this employee if they didn't have to do that one
Mm-hmm.
thing, and approach that stuff with a sort of startup mindset. Because I do feel like, to your point, in what we're building today, we're all going to be sort of chuckling at. I'm pretty sure. And the best way to look at that is like, well, I got in the arena and I started building, and that's what makes it so funny, is because I thought that was a good idea. But if you hold on to an idea and you never test it in the arena, you end up protecting it, and you don't find out it was not a great idea until it's way too late. So this to me is all about getting in the arena and building those things, because it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, it can be a very simple. I'm hearing a lot more too. And I mean, not to go back to this, but like building little games, I think
Mm-hmm.
is such a great first step in this whole space, where the very little table stakes, and you end up surprising yourself. Like, that's actually kind of cool. And I might share this with friends and they might think it's cool. And then, okay, what's next? How do I make it better? And
Right.
then whatever it takes for people to sort of take that first step, I think is critical. But again, if you do that first and don't have the data organized, you're going to be fighting your data every step along the way after that. And so
Yeah.
that makes it tough.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the games idea too. Just real quick, it's like my wife does like the New York Times crossword every day.
Mm-hmm.
She just got into it, but I'm like, it's just, if that existed, but it was like things within 10 miles of me or something like that,
Yeah.
I would totally
Yeah.
be doing that every day. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. Once again, you
Yeah.
guys just give me too many ideas to rabbit holes to chase. I feel
Well,
like
yeah, Ryan gives away a lot of our best ideas too, just for fun.
I'll cut that
So,
out.
Like I said earlier, I say these things because I want someone to build them. They should exist in the world, right? But in these particular cases, people should do it. I actually helped a friend. He had a game that I literally play with my family now. He was heading off to visit family over the holidays, and they had sort of a running game in their family that they do. And it's really simple, and it's super addictive, and it's easy enough to make it multiplayer. And I don't know, I think I was on my phone at a CVS waiting to check out, and started this whole process. And by the end of the evening, this game is super cool and it's real basic. It's like
Hmm.
so I think that's one of those things that, like, taking even popular games and making them hyper local, taking the rewards incentive and say, this is a 5% discount at the local sandwich shop, connecting it into your ad partners. And you
Mm,
realize, like, oh, we don't even have to come up with new ideas. We just have to localize a bunch of ideas we're all used to. And that actually might be the biggest winning recipe because your consumers are already aware of that. Like the
Right.
idea of like I complete these 4 tasks and I get a discount at a local thing. You don't have to explain that to me. I know how that
Right.
works. You know? And so this idea of taking successful ideas and hyper localizing them is gonna be, again, Google's not gonna do that. They're not gonna
Mhm.
meaningfully do that. You're gonna have this giant advantage by being local. So I think
Yeah.
that's very exciting.
Yeah. I had somebody on the podcast this morning, and he was talking about Warren Buffett when he was a kid, would go to
Mm-hmm.
like the racetrack and people would have all their tickets and they'd win like 50 cents on a bet and just like throw it out. So he would go through them and find 50 of these 50 cents vouchers and cash them in. That's how I think
Yeah.
about like Google looking at it. They're like, I'm not going to mess with like this tiny market here. But to like a
Yeah.
small publisher, that's like meaningful revenue, you know? So that's a piece
Yeah.
of it at least. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's so many ways to serve an audience at a local
Mhm.
level now using AI. Um, it's just that so many publishers are playing it very conservative because it's just like, well, not a lot works, but what does work, I need to make sure it keeps working,
Right.
which is fair. It's like, all right, but you have to build out some margin to try something new because the world isn't slowing down just because you're not fat, just because you can't go fast enough. Like
I think
you gotta find a new way.
I think a lot of people have been shell shocked from the last 25 years.
Yeah.
With local publishers in particular. I think they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
great, another internet," is like how a lot of people think about it, but it's like you said at
Yeah.
the
Yep.
very beginning, it's not this the internet and AI are not the same thing. It's like a different and you've kinda highlighted a lot of ways and how it's different like that.
It's just so different. It's like
Yeah.
it's more alien than it is
It
internet.
is. That is I
Yeah.
know. That's why it's hard to that's why from my business geek standpoint, all my business ideas I have, I can only come up with things that are going to work in the short term. That's how I know it's a crazy time right now. I'm like that's a cool arbitrage for like the next year or two, but I just don't know
Yeah.
how it's going to play out after that. You know what I mean?
I
Local
know the
media is
feeling.
different. I'm not a local, I work with local media people, but it's different because they have that moat of
We're
Yeah.
we're
like yeah,
we're all near future sci-fi writers now,
right?
where it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
By
Well,
the
wasn't there
time I finish writing it.
that blog that went viral last week that crashed the stock market basically? That's like did you ever see that? It was
No,
just
Yeah.
it
I
was from
was
some financial research company and it was notes it was written from like June 2028 and how like we're now at 12% unemployment and all this because of
yeah, right.
and it was not I mean it had some good points but it missed out on a lot of stuff too. But it's
Yeah.
basically a little bit of sci-fi and it wiped like I don't know how many trillions of dollars off of the stock market for a couple days before it kind of bounced back and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, just
Well, what I
We're
like
all
about sorry, yeah, let me slide this point in.
yeah.
What I like about the Small Press Big Ideas podcast that you put together is I think one of the things that resonates with me most often is that people really enjoy their habits.
Hmm.
And people who read local news or are like plugged into local news, they have a habit for it. They pick it up every Wednesday at this place. They go online every day at their email if that's where it's at, so on and so forth. And so for small publishers, that's great. Like you want to lean in on that habit. You don't want to be you don't want to be everywhere. You want to be where your audience is and if you know where they are. And so now you can start building out from that and why centralizing your data doesn't have to be like that's all on the back end. You don't have to show that to anybody. So you don't have to help your audience form a new strategy. But like on the back end, you can start getting yourself ready for what that new habit could be whenever you're ready.
Hmm. Man,
Yeah.
crazy. Mind blown emoji. Is there anything else we missed from your list you wanted to get to, Paul, is this a good spot to wrap up?
No, that was pretty much everything. I
Okay,
feel like
yeah.
this whole show has been your obligatory AI question.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
so I
Well,
appreciate it.
I mean, it feels like it's accelerating too. So, yeah, maybe that's what I'll call this episode, the obligatory AI episode or something like. Cool.
I know. I do feel like at some point there's going to have to be like some sort of therapy around this, because I feel
Yeah.
like there's I don't know the right stages of grief that are being played out in people, but it does feel like there is this sort of engagement ladder that people are working through. And one of the things that we started realizing is an important thing to highlight to businesses is there's a lot of reasons to be suspicious of the current businesses who are generating these frontier models. And I, as someone who's been encouraging people to lean in to the AI space, I have to be clear that I don't, I don't think this cast of characters is the same cast that walks out the other side. It wasn't like that with the internet. There's a lot of the early big companies that are nowhere to be seen. They're
Mm-hmm.
footnotes in history, and we'll likely go through that because of all the financial engineering around how they're building out. But I think a really important part about recognizing that you may have strong feelings around that, but you already have secret cyborgs in your organization. There are people who are playing with these tools. And if you aren't able to provide leadership in this space, many of your worst fears are going to happen without your permission.
Hmm.
If you're sitting here thinking like my information, our information, the collective information that we are responsible for, I'm nervous about these companies indexing it and getting it. Meanwhile, 2/3 of your employees are using these tools and and it's leaking out anyway. And so that's another thing that I think I'm not trying to like beat the fear drum. I'm just trying to be pragmatic about this and say, this is an area where you're going to have to demonstrate leadership to be on the other end of it as well. I
Mm-hmm.
think having concerns around privacy and data sovereignty is those are good things to be focused on. But if they're not paired with action, then they're not really doing very much.
Right. Man, good stuff. Yeah, I like that secret cyborg stuff I think you guys told me about last week too. But
Yeah.
uh
Ethan Mollick, Co-Intelligence. Fantastic book.
nice. Awesome.
Yeah, highly
Um
recommend.
what should I link to, guys? Like your socials and Lantrn AI, of course. Anything else?
I mean, our emails, if anybody wants to
Yeah, I'll
reach
do
out
that.
to us, they can
Oh,
reach out to
cool.
us directly. Ryan at Lantrn.ai and Paul at Lantrn.ai. I mean, like I really enjoy your show and everything that you do because I don't get a chance to talk to a lot of publishers from the swaths of the world that you do. So that's a key place for me to get insight on things like this. So it'd be
Thank you.
great to talk to some publishers one on one. In addition,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
And I'll reiterate that too. Like as someone who doesn't have a background in the industry, your podcast is a really great like introduction to the space as well as like introduction to the people in the space and kind of how they're thinking about stuff. So I do really value what you're doing.
cool. Thanks, man. The podcast is supposed to be getting good because more people have been flattering me lately about the podcast. I'm like, really? I feel like I haven't been doing anything different, but I'll take it, I guess.
It's
Thank you.
it's
Thank you
it's
very
it's
much.
good.
it's
Cool.
good.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.